When we think of abuse, we often picture visible scars. But some of the most powerful, most damaging weapons are completely invisible. Today, we're going to deconstruct two really insidious forms of psychological manipulation, the silent treatment and emotional withholding. And let's be clear, these are not just bumps in the road in a relationship. They are deliberate, calculated strategies designed to control and destabilize someone.
I mean, really think about that for a second. What happens when the very things that are supposed to build connection, communication and affection, are twisted and used against you, when they're systematically taken away to punish you, to control you? This is the core question we're diving into today, and it gets right to the heart of a deeply painful and confusing experience.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll define what these invisible weapons actually are. Then, we're going to break down two of the biggest tactics, that punitive silence and the intentional withdrawal of affection. From there, we'll look at the devastating psychological impact this all has. And finally, and this is the most important part, we'll lay out a clear, structured path to recovery.
Okay, the first thing we absolutely have to get straight is this. We are not talking about someone just having a bad day or needing a little space. These behaviors we're discussing are intentional, they're consistent, and they are strategically used to gain power by depriving a person of fundamental human needs, like connection and feeling validated.
And if you look at the clinical definition, that word intentional is key. The goal isn't just to be mean for the sake of it. No, it's strategic. It's all about weakening the victim emotionally, knocking them off balance, and creating this deep insecurity that makes them constantly scramble to win back the abuser's approval.
So let's dig into the first tactic, the silent treatment. This is probably one of the most recognizable forms of this kind of abuse, where the total absence of communication is literally weaponized. It's a conscious, deliberate refusal to engage, and it's used as an incredibly powerful form of punishment. This is where we draw a very sharp line between this and just needing some quiet time. Academically speaking, the silent treatment is a calculated tool. It's used to punish, to humiliate, and to reassert dominance. And you'll often see it right after the victim has dared to challenge the abuser or maybe set a boundary. It turns silence from something neutral into an active, aggressive weapon. And getting this distinction is, well, it's everything. Taking healthy space is temporary, and it's usually communicated. Someone might say, hey, I need an hour to cool off. It's about self-regulation to actually preserve the relationship. Punitive silence, on the other hand, is a cold, hostile act designed to control the relationship. The impact is always destructive, always designed to create deep anxiety and make you blame yourself.
And here's what it can actually look like. It might be someone literally ghosting you, ignoring calls, texts, everything. Or, and this can be even more chilling, it can be someone who is physically in the same room with you, but treats you like you are completely invisible. That silence isn't empty. It is thick with hostility, and it's meant to make you feel worthless.
So what's the psychological trick here? Well, it's a form of what you could call silent gaslighting. By refusing to explain what's wrong, the abuser forces the victim to fill in that blank. And almost every single time, the victim fills it with self-blame. They start asking, what did I do wrong? How did I cause this? They end up taking full responsibility for a punishment they don't even understand.
And this brings us to a really critical psychological concept. Because after a long, cold period of silence, the abuser might suddenly switch back to being warm and loving. This unpredictable cycle of rejection and then reward creates something called intermittent reinforcement. It's the exact same powerful mechanism that gets people addicted to gambling. You keep pulling the lever, hoping for that next small win, even though you're losing overall.
This leads us right into our second tactic, emotional withholding. So if the silent treatment takes away words, this tactic takes away warmth, affection, and intimacy. It's a lot more subtle sometimes, but it hits at our deepest emotional needs.
And notice those key words again. Active and conscious refusal. This is not just somebody who isn't naturally a very affectionate person. No, this is a deliberate holding back of emotional connection. It's a calculated decision to deny the validation, the tenderness, the empathy that really forms the foundation of any healthy bond.
So what kind of things are we talking about here? Well, it can be anything from a simple hug or a kiss to words of support and kindness. Empathy is just gone. Sexual intimacy is often turned into a powerful tool for control and rejection. It's like a complete and total shutdown of all the emotional channels in the relationship.
And the underlying message this sends is absolutely devastating. It teaches the victim that affection isn't a given. It's not a natural part of being with someone. Instead, it becomes a privilege that has to be earned through total compliance. Love becomes conditional, and it forces the victim into this state of constantly trying to please, which just completely erodes their own identity and self-worth.
So now let's talk about the damage. What's the cumulative effect of living under these kinds of conditions? Well, the impact is a slow, methodical, and devastating erosion of a person's entire psychological well-being. I really want you to let this sink in. Clinical research has confirmed that the long-term psychological damage from these invisible tactics is just as severe and, in some cases, even more so than from explicit verbal abuse or even physical abuse. And that's because it's so insidious. It gets inside your head and destroys your sense of self and your sense of reality from the inside out.
The specific injuries are severe. People in these situations live in a state of constant anxiety, always walking on eggshells. They internalize so much blame and shame. They feel this profound sense of isolation. And very often, they form something called a trauma bond. It's this tragic paradoxical attachment where you feel loyal to the very person who is hurting you because you're clinging to those rare, unpredictable moments of kindness.
When you lay it all out like this, you can really see the system behind it all. The silent treatment, that's aversive conditioning. It trains you to avoid confrontation at all costs. Emotional withholding uses that intermittent reinforcement we talked about to make you dependent, addicted to just crumbs of affection. And when you put those together with gaslighting, you've got a powerful, devastating system of psychological control.
But, and this is so important, there is a way out of this. Recovery is absolutely possible, and it all starts with understanding. So this final part of our discussion is all about a structured path to healing, to rebuilding the autonomy that this kind of abuse tries so hard to destroy.
So here are the essential steps. First, you have to recognize the pattern for what it is, a deliberate tactic. This is not your fault. Second, educate yourself. Understand the dynamics. Third, set firm boundaries. And often, this means reducing or even cutting off contact to break that addictive cycle. And finally, build a support network. Friends, family, support groups, people who can confirm your reality and remind you that you're not crazy.
And this, right here, is the single most important thing to take away from all of this. If you remember one thing, let it be this. What we've been talking about are not normal relationship problems. They're not just communication issues. They are systematic, calculated strategies of control designed to erode a person's spirit. Recognizing that difference is the first and the most powerful step towards freedom.